Welcome to Up Late with Primal Chaos. Hey guys, how you doing? Okay, so this one is one that's been a long time coming. A friend of mine, Jay, has been requesting this for a while, and I'm not sure why I haven't gotten around to it. I know Dillinger Escape Plan have a long and interesting career with a lot of, or at least had up until 2017, really interesting career with just apparently really intense live performances and stuff like that. That's pretty much all I'm aware of. But I know that this band was pretty important in Jay's life as far as music goes, to the point where when they finally did their final shows as a band in 2017, Jay flew all the way from Melbourne to New York City to check him out. I think they were in Melbourne at the time. But if that's the case, that means he went from a flight from Melbourne to Sydney, from Sydney probably to LAX, and from LAX all the way through to New York, which has got to be like a 24-hour sort of turnaround just to get to see, the final shows of a band that sadly he would never get to see again. And so, there's got to be something in this for people to behave that way, and that's what I'm here to find out today. I'm here to check out what it is that caught Jay's ear back in, I guess, 98, somewhere around there, and sort of, made him a lifetime fan, right? So I guess without further ado, let's dive right in. I've really got no context for Dillinger. I'm assuming it's probably going to be pretty techy, but I really don't know. So this is 43% Burnt. Okay, I was waiting for a rational point to stop, but it doesn't appear like there's going to be one. All right, so let me think. What's the best way to describe this? I think I would probably describe this as extremely experimental. What does that mean? It means that it's almost like the antithesis of traditional composition. It's like every time, traditionally, when you're composing a song, as in pop music or rock or, all of the standard definitions of composition, if that composer would zig, these guys have zagged. You know what I mean? It's like, let's try and do the most sort of, let's divert from the status quo at every single turn. And that's really interesting in and of itself. It makes the sum of the parts a little bit harder to engage with for somebody who's a bit of an outsider. But maybe that's part of the appeal of the band, right? They've, at least at this point, I don't know, maybe they evolved into a band that plays a lot more sort of accessible music. I honestly don't know. I doubt it. But in this case, this is challenging for most people to get into. And I feel like a core demographic of people into music probably appreciate that more, It's like, oh, you're outside the circle, you're not going to get it, sort of thing. The funny thing about it is it sounds a little bit like chiptunes. It sounds like glitched electronics. And I mean, it's no surprise. Like, I'm looking at the album art and it's a circuit board the photograph here, if you're not familiar with what that is, they're the bottom of vacuum tubes, which are what are used in amplifiers. But since like the 40s or maybe even earlier, I'm not even sure. Like the world's earliest computers used vacuum tubes as transistors, I guess, sort of are traditionally used now in computers. I might have that wrong. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But basically, a computer used to be a giant room-sized bank of valves, vacuum tubes, and all other nonsense. And so, it's an interesting sort of situation because it sounds electronic, like glitchy electronic sort of chiptune sort of sound, but obviously played organically by humans. Let me go back a bit. It was a little overwhelming because like literally every 15 seconds there's a different part, but the weird thing is I noticed there's all of this sort of just randomized noise, and then all of a sudden there's an open strummed chord that sounded just like John Petrucci's clean sound. Like it's just out of nowhere, There's that chord, right? It's like just dissonance. You got all of these like I have no idea what they're playing, but like just notes that, and then they'll just in the middle of it have like an actual harmonic chord, Yeah, it's wild. It's really weird. And I mean, at that point, when you're just playing sort of like straight eighth notes or whatever, it's not a rhythm. You know what I mean? There's no drum beat there. It's just straight snare and kick noise. You know what I mean? And again, that's the antithesis of traditional rock or metal writing. It's all about the groove typically. In this case, let's remove the groove completely from the equation and just add ephemeral noise over the top, but in a controlled way with technique. Like it's really interesting to listen to. Atonal noodling, like that's just all chromatic stuff. Like it's just like, there's not a scale there. It's just all the notes, I just want to love you, I just feel it. Everything's fine. Spit on yourself. You're so beautiful. Spit on yourself. So beautiful. Crack the devil. Lost the sun. Walk. Shine. It sounds like contemporary jazz musicians who have been possessed by demons. Because they're choosing all of the spicy sort of dissonant harmonic relationships, right? Everything is like, like a, it's always really sort of non-melodic. And then, it sounds like chaos, but underneath the chaos, you can hear the thought process and the structure and the very tight rhythmic sort of, what's the word? Intricacy, right? So like, you'll be just hearing like, then all of a sudden everyone stops at the, it's all like, it sounds too chaotic to be planned, but it's not, you know what I mean? It absolutely is planned, Again, what chord is that? See, it's worth noting it's not even just about the notes that they're playing, it's the sounds they're using too. Like they're basically it's like this hyper gain sound where like if I was to play some sort of just random assortment of notes, right? The sound I'm using here is pretty high gain, but if I just like that, it still kind of sounds musical. Whereas they've got like it running through fuzz effects or high gain effects or something like that, or a tube screamer or something. They're just basically bending the sound to lose any sort of aside from the fact that of the technique that it's played, you'd barely even know that was a guitar sound. It just sounds like static. Like I'm doing my best to just like I'm just going like this, and it still sounds pretty musical, right? But their sound is kind of like just like it's just there's no, in this particular part, there's no like melodic component to it at all, and it's just really interesting. Like it's definitely a choice, right? It's like you have to be like, you know what, I really want this to sound like pure chaos. Also, by the way, the counts, I've you guys know at the best of times I'm not big on counting rhythms. But I'm hearing some sevens and things in there, and but it's not, I can't even keep track. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm not even sure if they know. I think it's just a feel that they go through. It's crazy. Are we fading it? Yeah, I guess so. Why are they in this live? You can't do fade outs when you're playing live. I'm sure they've got a solution for that, but what do you... The other thing I'm noticing too is the singer, he doesn't have a traditional scream in the sense of, like singers that you typically hear. It sounds way more raw. Like he just literally sounds like he's screaming at the top of his lungs. There's no fry scream or anything like that. Any distortion you hear sounds like it's coming from just excessive force on the vocal cords, or, maybe some false chord engagement. I don't know. But it makes it sound passionate, right? Because it literally sounds like he just got a mic. Someone said, yell this shit. And he's the same way you would yell at a football game, loud and unrefined and uncontrolled. It's just literally, it just sounds like vocal cord damage, But again, that's a choice, right? I think if you took somebody like, I'm trying to think who's like a screamer that sort of, most sort of bands where there's a lot of screaming, there's a lot of compression and stuff in it where it's like, row, row. It's like a fake sound, right? And it sounds awesome. There's a reason everybody does that. But this is like, ah! It's literally just screamed, And again, it's like one of those things that works in harmony with the rest of the chaos that's going on. This sounds like the perfect blueprint for just having shows with just absolute anarchy in the pit, right? Because you've got those sort of blast beaty kind of. It's just going to be all elbows, right, the whole time, and then they're nice enough to sort of give you these subdued moments where you can catch your breath, and then after that, probably back into the chaos again, right? It's funny though, like I wonder, because there's a lot of thought process that goes into composing, producing, and arranging a song like this, right? There's so much nuance in here that I feel like probably goes over a lot of people's heads. And I just wonder if these guys are up on stage rocking out this stuff and they're just seeing just a whole bunch of large, angry dudes slamming into each other. And there must be a point in the show where you're doing your thing and you're playing your deliberate dissonant chords in deliberate, undanceable rhythms. And you're going, I'm sure they're having fun, but I suspect that they're not getting the nuance of what we're trying to do, Man, look, I don't know how to take this because this typically isn't really my bag, right? I like strong harmony and melody. I like interesting and complex rhythms. That's why I like things like Symphony X and Dream Theater and things like that, because they do all of that same stuff, but in a way that remains palatable for the general music listener, like more refined music listener. But to me, this is the kind of thing, I don't know that I would put it on if I'm driving somewhere where to chill out, but would I like to experience being in that pit just once? Absolutely. I know I'd probably lose a tooth or something like that, but there's a time and a place for this. And I guess it depends on mood. Some people who listen to this like all day, every day, you're a goddamn savage. But, to me, like, I appreciate it and I understand where it's coming from, but it's just, it's a little too on the chaotic side for my personal tastes, but I can totally see the appeal, just things like immediately when I hear this, I immediately want to try and figure out what they're playing and why, So from a musician perspective, there's so much going on here that I would need 15 more listens to really understand and to really figure out. And that in itself is attractive to me. But what I'm getting at more than anything is like, this isn't something I typically pick up and go, oh, this is something I'd be interested in. But it's one of those things. It's kind of like my journey into extreme vocals, right? I'd be like, it's kind of like, where I sort of pushed myself into listening to bands that I would typically just immediately dismiss as not for me. So maybe there is some future in Dillinger Escape Plan for me, like maybe because there's definitely a lot here has sparked my curiosity, and I want to know kind of more along the lines of other stuff they do, because they're clearly incredibly talented, right? You don't get to be the guitar player, for example, who chooses to start playing like that and then go into something like, unless you know what you're doing. You've been through the rule book and you understand the rules, and you're like, okay, now what can we do to subvert the rules, right? And that's kind of a really interesting, when an artist gets to that point, that's when they start really becoming interesting, So yeah, like I don't want to, I know I've said some stuff that may seem a little bit like, this isn't for me, but really what I'm saying is right now I'm still processing, I really need to sort of come to terms with what I heard. And then from there I can sort of, I guarantee in a week from now, I'll be like telling everybody, have you heard Dillinger Escape Plan? Have you got a moment to speak about Dillinger Escape Plan? So yeah, there's that. Listen, so I've kind of done this a little bit backwards. I think I've given more of like a summary before I've gone to the ad break. So let's just go to the ad break and maybe we'll tie it up. But yeah. Hey guys, this video is made possible by Enchroma. 1 in 6 guys and 1 in 200 women are colorblind. And if that happens to be you, there's something you can do about it. Click the link in the description. It'll take you to Enchroma's website where you can get a test. And while you're there, maybe pick up some corrective lenses. They've got styles to suit everybody and a 60-day money-back guarantee. So you got really nothing to lose. And while you're there, use the code CHAOS in checkout to get 10% off. Tell them Primal Chaos sent you. All right, so I know I can get it. I 100% understand. I see why Jay's into these guys, particularly after listening to the kind of music that him and his band sort of composed together. They're sort of at that point too where they're liking to push the boundaries of the rules. Incredibly thick layers of sort of sludgy, doomy kind of guitar layers and things like that. Which again is a choice outside of the well-trodden path, right? And so I can see how this kind of might tweak his creative muscles a little bit. And me too, maybe I got to sit down and do a deeper dive into this and analyze a lot of what they're playing, trying to learn sort of the parts, understand the dissonance, because dissonance is something that doesn't come naturally to me in my playing. And so that could be part of the reason I'm sort of having to put more energy into connecting with this than usual, But man, these guys technically just absolute brilliance. Really cool. And in fact, I would love to see them live just to see what's going on. And I understand the shows are chaos too, as far as them running around and doing crazy shit. How do you keep up with what you're doing with this and do that is something that's a mystery to me as well. So yeah, I'm super keen to learn a little bit more about these guys. Thanks again, Jay. That was awesome. Again, if you guys feel like I brightened your day at all, feel free to buy me a coffee. I'll put a link in the description. Like, share, subscribe, follow. I'm sort of going to try and get back to doing a little bit more aggressive stuff. I've been sort of getting a bit sidetracked lately. But, there's tangents that I'm really interested in exploring, and I'm going to do what I want to do, So, but yeah, I've got to get back to some more really intense, aggressive metal, because I feel like I've been sort of letting that slide a little bit lately. So we'll be doing that pretty soon. And yeah, thanks guys. I've been Primal Chaos. Catch you in the next one.